Life is not like the movies where everything always works out. I grew up in a house where my dad was arrested, so cops took him away. I saw that when I was 8, and I was raised by a single mom and a single grandmother. So my name is Chabot. My wife and I live in McKinney, Texas. We've got 4 young kids. I was born and raised in California, and I was raised by a single mom and a single grandmother. They never took government assistance. They always worked. They taught me the value of that. But there was a period there after we lost our house and Dad left that I got in a lot of trouble in my community. I began using drugs, and then when I was 12 years old, I entered a drug rehabilitation program. Although that initially might sound like a dark moment in anybody's life, I was able to recover and from that live a life of sobriety. When I was 16, I joined the Sheriff Explorer Scout. It was not always a profession that I wanted to go into. I actually didn't like the police at all. I joined that program for 5 years. I was a volunteer Sheriff Explorer Scout. What you learn is that all of these law enforcement officers are moms and dads and just good-hearted people. And so from that experience, I really latched on to law enforcement. When I became of age, I became a deputy sheriff. I put myself through the 3 different academies. I paid for it on my own, did it at night while I was going to college during the day. But there are some doors that get shut. When I was in law enforcement, one of my dream jobs was to become an FBI agent. And I thought, God, I should be a shoo-in, right? I've done law enforcement, I've got an advanced degree coming on board, but I got a letter back from them. And that letter said, basically, sorry, we can't accept you because you've used a drug more than 10 times. And I wrote them back saying, look, I understand the policy, but please listen, take an exception here because I was between the ages of 10 and 12. I wasn't even a teenager yet. And look at all the sobriety I have and all the things that I've done to help prove to myself and others that I'm no longer that person. And the FBI wrote me back a form letter basically saying, sorry, but we can't accept you. But at that same time, I also got a call unrelated to the FBI from the White House, Office of National Drug Control Policy, to come interview with their team. And I was hired as a Presidential Management Fellow, working with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies across the country with a common goal of dismantling drug cartels. So I joined the Navy in 2001 in April, and we know what happened a few months later. And I remember seeing the chaos, the smoke going across the National Mall. I had friends who were in the Pentagon that morning. There was a resolute amongst all of us that obviously, we were going to war. I then deployed with our Special Operations team as an intel officer in Iraq. Where I was initially stationed, they jokingly called it Mortaritaville because it got mortared all the time. And I had a chance to work with some of the most amazing soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, all working together at a very uncertain time in our country where we were losing a lot of lives. I tell all veterans that, we're all a little broken. You don't go to a place like that away from your family and come back the same. And I think that's okay, right? We all have these experiences, and you don't let those experiences turn you into a negative person, but you use those the best you can to help other people move through them. After I moved from Virginia to from the White House back to California, my wife and I became heavily involved out there in efforts to right the ship. And so I became very involved in politics in California. And in 2014 and 2016, I ran for Congress out there. 2014, it was the final 7 days of the election, and we actually knew we were winning in a Democrat-leaning seat. And the reason we knew we were winning is because the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee sent in Joe Biden, sent in Bill Clinton to help my opponent, spent millions against our race. That helped my opponent win that race. And it was hard for us. And from a military standpoint, you need some air cover to win the war. And we had a great ground game out there, but we were just getting bombarded. At the end of that election in 2016, my wife and I, we sat down and we watched the state make this dramatic shift to a solidly blue state. And we got 4 kids. And at the parks in California, one of the issues that we fought on was keeping drug dealers out of parks, getting tough on crime, supporting small businesses, and our policy issues fell on deaf ears. So we looked around the country for a place to move, to raise our kids, to have the same quality of life that we had when we were their age. And obviously Texas was it, because Texas now represents the American dream. here we are in Texas 5 years later, created a remarkable business. Our children are thriving. But now there's an opportunity here to work for the citizens of this area, to take lessons learned of what we saw fail in these blue states to make sure they never happen here in Texas. Because if we lose Texas, we literally lose the United States of America. As I'm getting older, retiring from certain jobs, retiring here from the Navy, retired as a reserve deputy sheriff with 21 years, jokingly say I had no pension, I worked for free. But the one thing they gave me when I left was an ID card. And I carry it with me often as a remembrance of the work that I did. It shows me when I first joined the police force, I looked like I was 12 there. But to have something like this where it says my retirement date and retired in good standing. When we leave our life or our jobs, we want to leave things in good standing. We want to do the best job that we can. We want to live a life of honor. And when we do that, we can look back and share these pieces. Maybe one day my kids might play with this or have this, and to look back and go, all right, Dad, you did a good job. Job well done.